And if you are in Super Church, Uncle Christian is doing that today, so we thank him for doing the Aloha class, which he did early on. And if you are able to be here at 9 o'clock, it's a great time of interaction and personal Bible study, and it's really cool. And then I want to say thank you to the ladies who made it such a special day yesterday. Thank you to everybody who came, and we praise God for you. You're a special group of people in our church, and we thank God for you. And yes, thank you, Debbie, as well. We just wanted to express our love to the ladies in this church, and you are so special. We are into a subject this morning that is probably going to be, well, a little different. But let me ask you this week, did you have any opportunity this week to say, that was really lucky? Did you hear anyone at work say, I'm just lucky that I didn't get laid off, or this car didn't run into me today. It just happened by chance. Have you ever heard anyone say that? And maybe you wish someone good luck with their test this week. You didn't mean anything by it. That's kind of a habit you have. And so we have a habit in society of really being a little more into chance than we wish. Now, if you ever buy gas on the mainland, and Glenn and Ann, as you go back Friday, you'll know what I mean. If you go into a store to buy gas, you want to always buy it at the pump. If you go into a store to buy gas, you are lined up behind a bunch of people who are buying what, Glenn and Ann? Lottery tickets. And they stand there and you're like, how does it take you so long? They've got to find their lucky number. I know you don't have this in Hawaii. Got to find their lucky number, and it's always, what's my lucky number? Some of them pull a piece of paper out to make sure they get the lucky number. Spending money on tickets they can't afford for prizes they're never going to win. And it's just a way of buying gas on the mainland. So that's why you want to buy at the pump if you can. Now, in Hawaii, we don't have legal gambling. I know there's online gambling, and we're not talking about legal gambling today, except for this. I discovered that when I ask people if they've been to the mainland, well, first of all, they ask me where I'm from, and I say Tennessee, and they kind of look at me with this accent. And then I say, have you ever been to the mainland? And I met one person so far who has never been to the mainland. But when I say, have you ever been to the mainland, I say, where? They all say... And I'm like, wow, is that because it's inexpensive? Is that because it's cheap? I don't know. I've been to Las Vegas, so okay. But then I discovered it is the 9th island, Glenn and Ann. Did you know that? They call it the 9th island of Hawaii. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody goes to Las Vegas for being gambles, but it does mean that it doesn't matter whether you have lotto tickets or not. There's a way in which people have a propensity to want to live by chance. And so my question to you today is it God or chance? Can it be both? Are you lucky that you're here today? Or is there something more to it? Deep down inside, people believe in luck. And it's not unusual for people to wear a lucky charm. I'm not into tattoos, but I read that 777 is a lucky tattoo. Don't get one. I'm just telling you that. But there are all sorts of ways in which people show their belief in chance. So today, what is the role of chance in our lives? I want you to think with me. What can we attribute to God, and what just happens by chance? And how often do you find yourself saying lucky? And how often do you find yourself checking yourself? See, this is an important day because we live in an age where even though we have advanced technology and we have great scientific advances, some people believe in God, some people believe in God and chance, and some people just believe in chance. And my guess is that all of us at some point struggle with this. For example, we teach in schools that this world was created by chance. Some big bang, and suddenly this world came into being. We don't know how. And then there's been an evolution, of a set of changes and mutations, and it's all a result of chance. Do you believe in God, or do you believe in chance? It's not a new discussion. In fact, it's a question that has been with us ever since the beginning. One 16th century theologian said this: Now it is most commonly accepted in all ages, and almost all mortals hold the same opinion today, that all things came about through chance. Most pagan religions, most non-Christian religions, most of the world's great religions emphasize chance. And it's a discussion that's been going on all the way back into Old Testament times. And so we're going to go to the book of 1 Samuel today. This is a narrative kind of sermon. And we're having a discussion, and we're going to get in on the discussions that the Philistines had in 1 Samuel chapter 6 about an ark, the Ark of the Covenant, that had been stolen. And they were trying to figure out why everything was going wrong in their lives. Maybe you're sitting here today saying, why did we lose that game on Saturday? Or is my bad back because of bad luck? Or is it because of something else? And when we think back through our lives, what were the chances of you being here today? So I do recognize we use chance in different ways. Sometimes when we say chance, we're talking about a possibility. What are the chances of it raining in Albuquerque, New Mexico when you get back? Very little, because it all comes on one day and you don't get 12 inches a year. So, when we say, what is the chance of it raining? We'll say, I don't know. But when we say that that's a possibility. When we say the chance of rain tomorrow is 40%, we're saying that's a probability. But when we say it all happened by chance, we're really saying it all happened by luck. And that's what I want to speak to you about today. So everything's gone wrong. And in 1 Samuel chapter 6, verses 1 through 12, that will be our focus. The central piece in the story is the Ark of the Covenant. You'll see that coming up on the slide. And we need to go back to 1 Samuel chapter 4. I love the story of Samuel. I tell it to my grandkids often. I say, wouldn't it be cool to sleep in the temple? And as you're sleeping there beside the temple, you're right by the Ark of the Covenant. Let's go back to just one more time that, Mark. And the Ark of the Covenant is this symbol of God's presence, and you get to sleep there, and you're just a little boy called Samuel, and you hear God call your voice. He says, Samuel, Samuel. You're like, what? Samuel, Samuel. And on the fourth time, he figures out it's God, and he says, speak, Lord, for your servant is listening. And I prayed that with my grandson this morning, for him and for me and for us here today, that as you listen, God would speak, and he'll speak to me. So it's a very special piece of furniture. And it's in the time of Samuel, who loved the Ark of the Covenant. And the Philistines are coming to battle against the Israelites. And there's this huge display of force from the Philistines. And they gained the upper hand, and they killed 4,000 Israelites. This is back in chapter 4. And they came back just with their heads hanging down in despair and saying, how could God allow us to get defeated by the Philistines? This is terrible. I thought we'd put them to bed as our enemies. And then someone came up with a brilliant idea. Hey, let's go down to Shiloh and get the Ark of the Covenant and take it with us next time we go into battle, because with that alongside us, it's going to be sure that we will win. Now, the Ark of the Covenant is a special piece of furniture. It's sacred. It represents God's presence among his people. It had been strategic in the initial battle of for the promised land, as they had walked around the walls of Jericho. The Ark of the Covenant was carried around. Inside the Ark of the Covenant were the three things: the Ten Commandments, Aaron's budding rod that he had thrown down in front of Pharaoh, and a jar of manna from the wilderness wanderings that reminded everybody how God protected them. And then on the top there was a lid where the high priest sprinkled blood once a year on the Day of Atonement. So someone came up with a great idea. Hey, we're going back to take on the Philistines. This time, let's take the Ark of the Covenant with us, as if it was some kind of lucky piece of furniture to be used by the Israelites to win wars. Without considering why they lost the battle in the first place, the reason was because Samuel's sons, Hophni and Phinehas, were evil priests taking advantage of their positions and misusing temple sacrifices. And they didn't stop for any evaluation. You see, when you see your life is more about chance than God, it gives you wiggle room. You don't have to think about why it happened. You just say it was bad luck and you move on. So now they're coming back and they're saying, it was bad luck. This time we'll take the Ark of the Covenant with us and we're sure to win with this lucky charm. So in verse 5 of 1 Samuel chapter 4, the Ark of the Covenant arrives. When the soldiers see it coming, there's a huge shout that shakes the ground from side to side. And the Philistines in chapter 4 and verse 7 of 1 Samuel are terrified. In verse 8 they say, "Woe to us! Who can deliver us from the power of these mighty gods? These are the gods who struck the Egyptians with some sort of plague in the wilderness." Whoa, we now have the presence of their God in the Ark of the Covenant. That we better step it up. We better fight with all our worth. They fought with all their worth. And this time, listen to me, how many died the first time? 4,000. This time, 30,000 Israelites die. Why? Because they used God's presence as a lucky charm. That's not what it was for. They didn't evaluate their lives. They just blamed it on chance. And now they lost the Ark of the Covenant. Not only did they lose 30,000 lives, but the Ark of the Covenant is captured by the Philistines. We're into chapter 5. 1 Samuel chapter 5. They take this ark to a city called Ashdod. I'll put these words up just so you can see them and know them. Let's put that one up there. Ashdod. And here's what happens. The hand of the Lord was very heavy against the people of Ashdod, and he terrified and afflicted them with all sorts of cancer, tumors, plague-type things, because they had the Ark of the Covenant in their possession. And they put the ark in a temple. It was the temple of Dagon. That was their pagan god. He was the father of Baal. You've heard of Baal. And so they put the ark at the feet of Dagon in the temple. And that night, something strange happens. There's a loud bang. They come in the morning to see what's happened. The statue of Dagon has fallen down at the feet of the Ark of the Covenant. They put him back up. He's an idol. He's a statue. He's not a real God. They come back the next morning, and he's not only fallen down, but he's busted in place. His arms are busted off. His legs are busted off. All they've got is a shattered idol lying at the foot of the Ark of the Covenant. And the hand of the Lord was heavy because the people of Ashdod were terrified. So you got that word in your mind? Let's put that up. Ashdod. Well, they say, we better get rid of this thing. This is bringing bad luck to us. If this Ark of the Covenant causes, without any known reason, the idol to fall down and be smashed, we better get rid of it. Let's take it to another capital city. These are all capital cities of the Philistines. Let's take it to Gath. So they take it to Gath. It's moved there, and all of a sudden everybody in that town gets sick with plagues and tumors, and I guess we'd call it cancer. And so they move it to the next capital city, and it's called Ekron. So look at this one. And when it is coming there, 1 Samuel 5 and verse 10 says, "So when the ark of God was sent to the town of Ekron, and the people saw it coming, they cried out, 'They're bringing the ark of God of Israel to kill us too. This thing is bad luck.'" They didn't want it. They didn't know how to get rid of it. They didn't know what to do with it. So in 1 Samuel chapter 5 and verse 11, they gathered together all the priests and the leaders, and the writer of the story says the hand of the God was heavy on the people, and they have a big meeting to decide what they should do. And now we're in chapter 6 and verse 1. How shall we get rid of the Ark of the Covenant? They're afraid to keep it. They're afraid to touch it. They're afraid to send it back. Now here's the center of the story. Verse 3. Here's what they come up with, the priests and the magicians. "Send the ark of God of Israel back with a gift." Let's give a gift. And the gift we're going to give is going to be the following. We're going to send it with We're going to send it with some things that will signify that if the gift is accepted, we'll know the plagues that have come into the cities have come because of the hand of God, and you'll all get healed, or we'll figure out whether this was just a coincidence, an accident, or bad luck. So send the ark of God of Israel back. Send a guilt offering so the plague will stop. Then if you're healed, you will know it was his hand that caused the plague. So they come up with, well, what kind of guilt offering? Verse 4. Make it 5 gold tumors. Can you imagine how ugly they were? 5 gold rats, as ugly as that would be. But they cost money to make, and they were a gift to go back and send to the Israelites. So now we've discovered the gift we've got to give to see whether the plagues that we have are because of the ark of the covenant and God's hand, or they're just because of bad luck and bad fortune. But we've got a big problem. The problem is, how do we get the ark of the covenant back? If we touch it, we may die. If we leave it, we'll get sick. And so they come up with an amazing plan where all the odds are stacked in favor of chance. And this is what they say, verse 7 and 8. Now build a new cart and find 2 cows that have just given birth to their calves. Make sure the cows have never been hooked up to a cart before. That's crazy. Hitch the cows to the cart. Don't let the babies go with them. Shut their babies away in a pen so they're going, whoa, whoa, moo, moo, mama, we want some milk. And put the ark on the cart, and beside it place a chest containing the gold rats, the gold tumors, and that we're sending back as a guilt offering. And then just stand back. Don't show the cows where to go. And here's verse 9. If they cross the border of our land and go to Beth-shemesh, we will know that it was the Lord who brought this great disaster upon us. If they don't, we'll know it was not his hand that caused the plague. It was simply by, say it with me. Did you know that word was in the Bible? As long as people have been alive, they've been asking the question, is it God or chance? Is it by accident, or was it just good luck? And this sounds so primitive, gold rats and gold tumors. And, you know, we're in a scientific age, artificial intelligence. We've got these rockets we can blast to the moon. But do you know what? These Philistines did not have, get it right, these Philistines had not lost. They didn't have PhDs in physics. But this discussion they were having about God and chance could have happened anywhere, any day in America. You see, some of us are playing this game with God. We're trying to figure out whether, if I make this decision, am I going to be lucky, or is God going to punish me? If I don't do exactly what he says and I cut a few corners, am I going to get by just by chance? And the experiment that is so clearly in favor of chance, 2 cows have never pulled a cart before, with their newborn calves calling out to be fed milk, these primitive people believed that chance was equally as powerful as God, which is a lot like a lot of people in America today. So what is chance? I'm not talking about possibilities or probabilities. Let's ask ourselves, what is chance? Because we talk about luck, we say good luck. And by the way, guess what? Guess what? What? Okay. My grandson says that every sentence. Guess what? And I'm like, I don't know. Guess what? I love you. Guess what? Guess what? Your homework for this week is to see if you can stop saying luck and lucky. Now, it's a habit some of you grew up with and never thought it was any problem. And if you do it, we're not going to jump all over you, but I challenge you to begin to take it out of your vocabulary. We've done that as a family. Now we have to find other ways of talking about things. What are some other good words instead of luck? Blessing, answer to prayer, providence, the goodness of God. You got to find some other words because, some of us just were raised in families where we talked about luck just like we talked about God. So what is chance? Chance is not an entity. It is not a personality. Chance is nothing. And you know what nothing can do? Nothing. Nothing can do no thing because it doesn't exist. Chance is a word we use for things that happen without a cause. But chance can't make anything happen. Now, human beings can. God can. We know there are principalities and powers out there. But luck and chance can do no thing. To say that this world came into being by chance is the most unscientific thing you can say. And yet we teach it to our kids in school every day. You see, to allow chance to do anything is not only flawed scientifically and philosophically, but it's flawed biblically and scripturally, and it's an attack on the sovereignty of God. And I'm not here to beat up on you this one. I'm just asking you to begin to change the way you talk about chance and luck and stop talking about it. Because these Philistines, they talked about it. Let's put it to the test and see. The bottom line is that if God is not in control of everything and does not sustain everything, then he's not sovereign and he's not God. Way back, maybe 30 or 40 years ago, R.C. Sproul preached a sermon on this that changed a lot of our thinking and affected me. And one of the lines in that message was, if there's one maverick molecule in this world outside of his control, then God is not sovereign and God is not God. Can I read that again? If there is one maverick molecule in this world that's controlled by chance, outside of his control, then God's not sovereign and God is not God. And we have decided that chance and luck are the reasons that we use to interpret suffering and evil in this world. And instead of saying that evil and suffering that are out there and this world is not the way that God intended it to be, we blame some things on chance instead of having an answer for evil and suffering in this world. So why are we drawn to talk about chance so much as Christians? I think it's a habit, and many of us were raised with that, and we didn't realize that it conflicts with the Bible. Maybe you've never really thought about it before. Maybe you don't even know the story, and so I'm wanting to make it famous in your heart today. Maybe you've been around what Greg Groeschel calls Christian atheists. He has a great book on Christian atheists. That's weird, isn't it, Steve? Christian atheists? That's like talking about jumbo shrimp. It was almost perfect, Robert. It's either perfect or it's almost. It's an oxymoron. How can you be a Christian atheist? Well, what he says in this book is, I believe in God, but I live as if I don't believe in God. I've got this chance versus God going on in my life all the time. So I believe in God, but I don't pray because in practice I'm a practical Christian atheist, but I have a belief that's in God. But if I can leave just a little room in my life for chance, then I'm not accountable in every area of my life. I can fudge on some things, and if I get lucky, God will let me get away with it. I can hide a portion of my life from God's eyes. And you know what? Lord, I want to give you 99.9% of my life, but if you'll just let me have that 1/10 of 1%, then I'll feel I'm in control of something. And so if I can control some things, they're just lucky, or I'm in that by chance, then God, I can get away with just a little bit less holiness than you really want me to have. You know what? If there's some things that happen by chance, then God doesn't care about everything in your life. And that's not true. And if there's some things that you can get away and be lucky with when I can't or someone else in this room can't, then that means that God doesn't really care about your obedience. And if we have to take a test today and see whether it was God or chance, then maybe we're trying to avoid some spiritual responsibility or the discipline that God's wanting to do in our lives because He's a Father who loves us. But deep down inside, if I could just manipulate God, if I could just move something around, if I had a little bit of luck, God, then I'd feel like I was more in control. Did you lose your job because it was bad luck? Did you not get into college because you weren't lucky? You know why people talk so much about chance? Guess what? What? I think it's a way of avoiding the truth of a God who made everything and He's in control. I think it's a way of pushing God out of our daily lives to make Him more distant when He wants to be involved in everything we do 24/7, every second of the day. It gives us a little wiggle room, which makes us feel a little more comfortable, but it is actually more dangerous. And guess what? Christians, when we leave it up to chance to explain hard things like evil and bad things, we're running into a dangerous trap. And we need to face evil and suffering and illness and disobedience and the consequences of our actions and recognize that God in His sovereignty sometimes causes things to happen and sometimes allows things to happen. But we have to face up to the fact that His ways are higher than our ways and He doesn't think like we think. And Lord, You're in control and I'm going to trust You. Maybe I'm making you uncomfortable today. Maybe I'm treading on your toes. I'm treading on mine. But here's my challenge. In your family, drop using the word luck. We in our churches, we left the word luck out of our conversation. We did it by teasing each other initially. Then we charged $100 for everyone who said luck. But you could say, you give me a quarter for every time you use the word lucky. Some of us will get real rich. There is no such thing as a coincidence. There's only a God incident where He brings it together. I was raised in Africa. You know animism, which is kind of the world religion. It's in Confucianism, Buddhism, and all these religions. Basically worshipping material things, animistic, making dead things as if they were real things, like Dagon, as if it was alive. What animism says is God, they all believe in God. He's way up there. He's so far away that He doesn't have time for us, but in between us and this almighty God are all these little gods and statues. You've seen them in temples. If you've been to Asia or South America or Africa, you've seen them. The tourists buy them. And they're the little guy you put on your table for good luck. Because if you can manipulate the intermediary gods, then you can get the good big God to do the best thing for you. Now let's finish the story. You ready? If you're ready, say I am. So, we got the cows never been hooked to a cart before, the calves wanting milk. And here's the test. If they cross the land, we just let them go. We don't even tell them where to go. They can wander off into a field. They can go either side. They may not even move. They may break the cart. I don't know what they're going to do. But if they actually go back across the border, then we'll know that all these illnesses and plagues came, that if they don't go across the border, we'll know all these illnesses and plagues came by chance. So they put the ark on the cart. They hook up the cows and they don't break the cart. They don't kick the cart into pieces. They put the gold rats and the gold tumors on there, verse 11 of 1 Samuel chapter 6. And sure enough, verse 12, I love the New Living Translation here. And sure enough, you know what's going to happen. And sure enough, without veering off in any other direction, and sure enough, those cows go straight along the road. Nobody's telling them where to go. They go towards the border town of Beth Shemesh, and as they go, they're lowing as they go, saying, hey, babies, we're going, we're leaving you. And why do they walk straight across with all the odds stacked against them? Because there is no such thing as, say it with me, there is no such thing as chance. And the Philistine rulers follow them as far as they could go, and they go, what? They're not even turning back. They're walking in a straight line. Guess what? Our experiment proved one thing. This didn't happen by chance. Because chance is nothing, and chance can do no thing. The Lord God Almighty brought this great disaster upon us. So let me ask you, do you believe in God or chance? How did you get here? Not by chance. I drove my car in today and I said to Debbie, you know, the number one question I get is, how in the world did you become an interim pastor in Hawaii? I don't know. But I know it's not by chance. Not one molecule is out of God's control. There is evil. There is suffering. We're looking for a better day. We know this world is not our home, but it's not by chance. Joseph knew it. When his brothers threw him into the pit because he was the favorite son, went down to Egypt as a slave, got falsely accused, was betrayed by Potiphar's life, forgotten in prison. His brothers came to see him. He didn't tell them it was him initially, but then after a while he revealed himself to them. And what did he say in Genesis 50, verse 20? He said this: as for you, you meant it for evil, but God meant it for good, to bring about that many people should be kept alive as they are today, because it brought all of his family to Egypt out of the famine, and it spared their lives. Do you believe God is working for your good even in the difficulties? Chance didn't do it too. God allowed it. Sometimes God caused it. We got to think that through carefully, but everything's filtered through his hands. Romans 8:28, hang on to it. Will you read it with me? And we know, say it like you mean it, and we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose. And if you read on, you know what the good is? That you would be conformed to the image of his Son. So don't believe in chance. Don't give chance another moment's thought in your mind. Don't give it another space in your conversation. Try to take it out of your conversation. And face evil and this world not being your home and the persecution that we're suffering as a real thing, and don't blame it on luck or chance. A lot of things are attributed to Charles Haddon Spurgeon, but I think this one is truly one of his. He says this: God is too wise to be mistaken. God can't make mistakes. You and I can. And we suffer the consequences if we don't learn from that. God is too good to be unkind. And when you can't trace his hand, what he's doing in your life, don't look to luck or chance. Trust what? Trust his heart. You can trust his heart.